The Skeena line runs for 700 miles through the scenic heart of Canada's British Columbia province. Through pristine forests, between soaring mountain heights, and over myriad streams, the rails bear the adventurous traveler from the parapets of the Rocky Mountains to the wild and beautiful Pacific coast. The train travels through a vast, remote, and sparsely populated part of North America. Many of the towns are so small that for the brief moments of the train's passage, their populations are doubled or even quadrupled. The train itself can be characterized as a village on wheels. A complete community careering through the countryside. This modern passenger train is a complex of big, powerful machinery, proven 19th century technology, sophisticated communications, experienced crews, and a nearly 80-year tradition of safety and service.
One car, 64.
The Skeena starts at Jasper in Canada's Alberta province and wends its way westward through British Columbia to Prince Rupert on the Pacific coast. The first day's destination on this two-day adventure is Prince George, British Columbia's geographical center. Jasper is a bustling tourist town high in the northern Rocky Mountains. Each summer, the population swells with vacationers. Seasonal jobs are in abundance. Thousands of people from all over the world come here to get away from each other.
We're from Australia, we don't have any glaciers down there.
Many come to view the wildlife. This elk herd calls the streets of Jasper home.
Look at that one's eating the bushes.
Ultimately, it's the lure of the majestic mountains that draws all who come here. The sights and sounds of this rail yard haven't changed much in the last 80 years. Like so many communities along the route of the Skeena, Jasper is here because the rails are here. It might be a mountain getaway now, but Jasper's past is intricately intertwined with the quest by Canadians to link their country's coasts and open up a trade route to the Orient. No one knows this line's history better than Harry Home, or the railroad guy, as he's known in town. Harry's father was a railroad man, and Harry's been working on the railroad since he was 16. He worked on the Skeena for 5 years. He frequently spends his leisure time rebuilding this 1923 6015 mountain-type steam engine. Harry Home doesn't just know Canada's rail history, he's a legendary part of it.
In 1911, the steel arrived in Jasper. They had to send ships and men and materials all the way around through South America, up the coast, and up to this little place called Port Simpson, which was full of ideals. They started up against incredible odds. Flies and mosquitoes, passes. They couldn't even see where they were going. The bush was so dense you had to climb a tree to see where you were.
Just up the track, the Skeena is poised for departure. Passengers who embark on this journey are in store for more than a fantastic rail adventure. They're boarding a living part of Canada's vibrant history.
In other areas, the nation built the railroad, but in Canada, the railroad built the nation.
Watch your step now.
The conductor today is 30-year veteran Dave Burns. Dave is an old friend of engineer Harry Holm. Each possesses an intimate knowledge of the people and the places along the track.
Hello, Harry. How you doing?
Hi. Good to see you again.
Yes.
John, how's things on the Rupert Rocket?
Beautiful.
I have a little chore I want for you.
What?
You know about my Scottish background and yours. I don't have the money for a stamp. Wondering if you'd let this letter off for me for Wheelers there at mile 40?
Definitely. See you later, Harry.
Take care, eh?
Okay, take care.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just go and make sure these guys get the stuff all on.
The Skeena was once run as an overnight train. The railroad wisely decided that the trip was too beautiful to spend half of it in darkness.
Take care now.
Amenities on this train include comfortable coaches, a dome car, meal and beverage service.
Thanks a lot, Harry. Okay.
The train glides smoothly and quietly on welded rails and a well-maintained roadbed. During its 2-day journey, the train will cross 191 bridges and travel through 14 tunnels. It parallels the path of 4 different rivers, skirts mountain ranges, and meanders through scenic valleys. The stunning scenery emerges almost immediately as the train hugs the banks of Moose Lake. The first day takes the train half the distance to the sea, from Jasper and the Rocky Mountains to the high plains of British Columbia's interior plateau and the city of Prince George.
Jasper to Prince George. That's the one.
Dave Burns knows this route well. Now the senior conductor on the Northern Line. He's worked the freight and the passenger trains.
I started as a brakeman for Canadian National Railways in 1965. I guess after about 29 years of chasing trains around, I wanted to come back to my first love, which was the passenger train. Australia? Well, that's... Oh, my goodness. So you're a long ways from home, then. I love the people, because day in and day out, the job after a while does get ho-hum. It's the same thing, same track, everything else, but the people are always different and so interesting.
And you know, we could have gone home another way.
I know.
But we just thought this was a great train ride.
The Skeena crests the Continental Divide at Yellowhead Pass and crosses the border of Alberta into British Columbia. The majestic peaks that make the train seem so insignificant in the landscape are themselves dwarfed by the massive Mount Robson, the highest peak in the Canadian Rockies.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, if you look to the right here, you'll see Mount Robson. It is 12,972 feet. And how much does it weigh, sir? I'm waiting for an answer.
It's very heavy.
Very heavy. You got it right, because that's about the most I know of it, too. The Fraser River is down below here, and we'll follow that all the way to Prince George.
From its source in Yellowhead Lake, the Fraser River flows 850 miles to the Strait of Georgia at Vancouver in British Columbia. The powerful and regal Fraser River Chinook salmon have one of the longest spawning migrations in North America. A good introduction to the Fraser River is a quiet float trip with Mount Robson Adventures river guide Bruce Wilkinson.
Well, it's not normally that you get such a good day to draft here. A lot of days we have a lot nicer sun than this. It's not quite as cloudy as it is today. We kind of lucked out on here, actually. Well, I moved to British Columbia in 1979. We came out on a vacation. We were going to have a year off work and a working vacation. We liked it so much, by the time the year was up, we basically just stayed here. We just gave up everything we had in Ontario. Said, sell our house, keep our jobs, we don't care. We're staying in British Columbia. And we've just kind of become river rats or something since then. There's another, that big dark shadow up ahead of us is another salmon. Some have gone through to spawn up above us, but most of them spawn down below us. Okay, so we're going to get out here to have a look at some salmon. Oh, doesn't that water feel good? No. We got some here. If you come up here, you can see the salmon right here in front of us. There is 5 species of salmon in the Pacific Ocean. Chinook is the biggest, coho, sockeye, chums, and pinks. And this is the only one that can come this far. All 5 species behave the same way. They have to come to gravel to lay their eggs. They all have alevins, and they all go to saltwater to live their adult lives and come back here to spawn and die. And all fish die at spawning, males and females. Males don't go back. They've deteriorated too much coming up here, so they will die.
Further downstream, the river is a turbid suspension of rock flour ground off the mountains by the action of the glaciers high above. The formidable Mount Robson looms around every corner. Ribbons of sparkling water and of steel run a parallel course along the banks of the Fraser. The hum of a locomotive can often be heard over the lapping of the river.
We actually have a train coming on our tracks. The railway from the river here runs directly to our right. You can see the 2 lines along the mountain. It was 2 separate railways were built along that ridge right here. They were built around 1909 to 1914 through this area. When the railway was being constructed, about every 3 to 5 miles of railway track, they would have some kind of a community. Throughout the bush there, you can find many remnants of the railway. It's all there. It's just we can't see it anymore because the buildings have been removed, the forest has grown up over it. You'd be amazed at what you could find all the way through to the coast again, as far as buildings and towns. And they just are no more, and they were such small places that there isn't a real big written history about them.
The Grand Trunk Pacific, as it was called then, was finished in 1914. The passenger line is now run by Via Rail, Canada's passenger train network. The gleaming stainless cars were introduced in 1955 and have since been thoroughly modernized.
So, how are you folks enjoying your trip?
This is the 3rd time.
3rd time now?
Yes,
So you're one of our mainstay travelers here.
Right, yes,
I think it's a train so far that hasn't gotten too busy on us. We can be more personal. You know, we have more time for our passengers. And how's my favorite people? Look at this. It's not like where you've got 18 or 20 cars where you're just run. And, you know, we have these 3 and 4 cars that we run up and down. And I think we give probably a little more personal service because we have the time.
Dave remembers a time when the Skeena was an integral part of every community along the route.
Well, the train was their lifeline. It was totally their lifeline. There was no other transportation or to get into these places because there was no highways, no roads into it, and it was totally done by rail traffic.
Nestled in the 2-mile-wide, 150-mile-long Robson Valley, the farming community of McBride was once totally dependent on the railroad.
And that will do VFI.
Today, reminiscent of its whistle-stop past, the Skeena interrupts its journey at the farm of Marilyn Wheeler and her son Matthew.
Hello, Marilyn. Yeah, Harry Holmes wanted me to deliver this letter to you, so...
Oh, great.
There
thanks.
you go. He's... You know, him being trying to be so cheap, he doesn't want to spend the price of the stamp.
Yeah, that's great. No, I don't know whether I've ever met him, but we've been waving to him since about 59. So.
Yeah, he's been around for a long time. He's quite a fellow, actually.
seeing him go by here.
That's right.
Yeah, well, I think he's got some things he wants me to change if I do another edition of the book. Well, I've never had a letter delivered quite like this before.
There you go. Okay, it was very nice. We'll see you guys later, hey?
We'll see ya.
Take care.
Yeah.
The Wheelers lived just 4 miles from downtown McBride. While the Grand Trunk Pacific was being built, McBride was a busy boomtown of 2,500. Today, around 700 people call the town home. Its coupling to rail history is evident all over town, except at the essentially abandoned train station.
The station was the center of everything. They had the beanery there. That's where you went for a meal.
People to gossip is where you caught up on the latest
when the mail
news
came in.
Meeting the train would be an event in itself, and half the town would turn out to meet the passenger train or see the freights unload freight. And there's incredible shots of women in their long white dresses under the restaurant sign.
And then there's the army one with the all the soldiers.
The troops
all
leaving in
actually, it was right
1914.
along here.
And so there's this incredible activity that would take place here with the locomotives coming through and the crews changing. But of course, that's all memories now with the changes.
The biggest change was the completion of an all-weather highway in 1968. People just stopped using the train, but it never left the wheelers.
Oh, that's neat. Should have had my camera.
The railway's been a pretty major part of our lives because it would be hard for it not to be when it's almost on our doorstep. Come on! Want to go out? Come on.
Marilyn Wheeler moved to Canada from her native Sussex, England in 1955. She's lived at her farm next to the tracks for nearly 40 years.
Let's go and see how these oats are doing.
As if running a sheep farm weren't enough work, she was a teacher, a regional health official, a magistrate justice of the peace, and has raised 2 sons. In the late 1970s, she wrote a complete history of the Robson Valley. It's no accident that a train graces the cover. Marilyn's son, Matthew, is an accomplished photographer. His favorite subject, the Skeena. He's captured the train in many moods, locations, and seasons. Matthew has been documenting the trains of Canada since childhood. He drew and painted the many trains that passed the Wheeler farm. When Matthew was 10, one of his paintings won an international competition of children's art and was exhibited in the Louvre.
Matthew was totally obsessed with trains and drew them at every possible time that he could. In fact, just about every piece of paper had a train drawn on it. And one of his great enthusiasms was for us to go up, when he was around 3 years old, to go up onto the crossing, which was
just down the track there where the road crosses the railway.
I was never quite sure why he wanted to go up there.
We were never allowed on the track as kids.
And then one day he solved the mystery.
I have vague recollections of kneeling down and sort of touching it with my finger. And
he said, you know, when I stand on this track...
now I'm touching all of Canada.
I'd never thought of that.
The Atlantic Ocean in Halifax.
It made me think of it in a whole different way.
The people are traveling on this connection right now.
Among those traveling the Canadian connection are the passengers of the northwesterly bound Skeena. This is prime moose and bear habitat. Determined prospectors were once lured to these peaks by the promise of gold. Before the train, steamships brought travelers upriver from the Pacific. They then made the arduous journey into the wilderness by horse and cart. Today, a Skeena passenger in search of a backcountry adventure need only arrange transportation to nearby Valemont. Canadian Mountain Holidays will do the rest. The Rockies of northern Canada are a labyrinth of peaks, valleys, and treacherous glaciers. These mountains were inaccessible to all but the most skilled mountaineers until Canadian Mountain Holidays began its heli-hiking adventures.
I'm gonna go right over top of Big B Ridge. I can't get tired of this.
Sure is torquing out of that ice, isn't it?
Here we are for another hike.
Less than an hour ago, these hikers were enjoying breakfast at a mountain lodge. Now they're exploring a glacier. With a helicopter, both strong hikers and first-time visitors are able to enjoy this wilderness.
And right now we are on the North Canoe Glacier. This would be a very difficult place to come without a helicopter.
Hiking parties are grouped by their preferred level of difficulty. Each group is led by an experienced mountain guide like Werner Numsen.
Just remember, just walk where I walk. I like to go single file because there's middle wells and crevasses. And when you don't see me, don't follow me.
Right.
You see how the water runs down there and make that big hole? And this is for me a very spiritual place. When you don't like it here, I can't help you. That's the way I put it. I mean, this is God's country. Especially with help with a helicopter, you can bring people here who never experienced anything like this. And that's the pleasure of my job. We need a guide. We need a guy who goes with and explains things and make it safe and enjoyable. That's what I do.
The helihikers are ferried to their next trek by pilot Doug McIntosh, or Mac as he is known by the guides. He's been flying for 20 years and seems to effortlessly navigate the many steep cliffs and valleys.
It may look easy, but your mind is very busy. You're really focused. Your mind is ahead of the machine, trying to anticipate what Mother Nature's going to throw at you.
Ed Graganovicius is a vacationer from Orange County, California. He's come here to photograph the mountains.
They're just very picturesque, at the same time very strong in what you see, very powerful. You look at the glaciers and the wilderness, and you come to really appreciate, you gain a lot more respect for it being out here. Puts things in perspective for you, I think. When all you do is work 6-7 days a week and you realize there's a lot of other things out there that are more important.
We're coming up to a very nice viewpoint now here.
Transported to a point high above the glacier they just crossed, the helihikers can peer down at a group making the same traverse.
Here you can see where we hiked on the glacier.
As they stand on what feels like the edge of the world, life in the city seems very distant.
It's a nice spot down there for lunch.
We got lots of moose burgers, glacier worm. Oh, this looks good.
I can't believe it. Perfect. Any place was so beautiful.
The trip was just wonderful. We went on the top of that mountain over there.
This afternoon, we're going to be doing more hiking. I think maybe meadows. In the meadows, I'm not sure. But first, I want to swim in that lake. Whoa! Whoa!
The afternoon hike begins at a place where the ice is long gone, but glacial rivers continue to sculpt the land.
And here you can see how the glacier polished the walls when I was moving downhill. I've been here when chunks of ice were floating down here in the little creek here. You can see more water coming from the upper part there.
Right. It looks like really dirty water up there.
It's really shooting out.
Yes.
The water, sepia tinted by its burden of silt, carries the mountain downstream, slowly healing the gash the glacier left millennia before. The group heads upstream, back towards the source of these cascades, back into the ice.
Okay, when we go down here now, use your heels, okay?
Yeah.
Otherwise you go sliding, and use those footprints we digged here already.
Though winter is months away, snows have already begun to accumulate. Soon, Canadian mountain holidays will turn their attention to the winter adventure of heli-skiing. As this day's adventure nears its end, the spongy ground of a high tundra meadow yields pleasantly to aching feet.
Won't be long, we have...
With boots heavier and breaths shorter, the happy hikers head to the top of the ridge.
I think coming up here, you get the cobwebs out of your brain that you get down in the cities. And you just forget what it's all about till you get up here and, hey, this is what it's all about.
To be able to come up here and with a guide go into these marvelous places, hiking up to peaks and then come back to the lodge and order a drink, have a gourmet meal served, and then a bed with sheets, it's pretty nice. I mean, it's pretty hard to beat.
It was an excellent day.
The Scenic continues its jaunt through the scenic Robson Valley. The stretch between McBride and Prince George is one of the most isolated segments of the route. Hemmed by farmland and forest, the tracks twist along the Fraser River. Locomotive engineer John Howarth runs the Skeena between Jasper and Prince George year-round. He's been a railroader for nearly 30 years and has operated locomotives for 22 of those.
My interest in the railway kind of goes back to when I was a little kid, because I grew up in a railway town, and my dad was an engineer. He worked for CN Rail at the time, and he drove steam engines. And when I was a little kid, I kind of always wanted to do that, and that's what I ended up doing. One of the earliest things I remember about the train is the steam engines that used to go roaring out of Jasper. One of our favorite things to do was to go out and put a big line of grease on the rail ahead of the steam engines, and they'd come out of Jasper with their heavy loads and they'd be just pulling hard, if you can imagine. It'd be and they'd hit that grease and the wheels would just go and they'd be stalled. They couldn't do anything, so they'd have to back up. One time we were, hidden behind our rock laughing, and thinking we were all clear, we all stood up, and my dad was right in front of the rock, and he promptly took me over to a willow bush and cut a switch and switched me all the way home. When you take the train, there's just a certain charisma or a certain attraction that people have for the train to begin with. It has a mystique, and physically the train is spacious. You can get up and walk around. You can go and have a coffee, and some trains people go and have a drink. And for some reason, trains bring out the socialite in people, people that normally don't really talk. When they're sort of a captive audience on a train, they'll talk. And a lot of people that take the train will tell you they do it for that reason, that they've made some of the best friends they've ever had on the train. And people meet their mates for life on the train. And there's just some magic about taking the train that if you want to get somewhere quick, take the bus. But if you want to have a good time while you're getting there, take the train.
John and Dave stopped the train for what has become a ritual straight out of the Skeena's past.
Hey, Clarence, hey, Olga. Uvi, how's it going? There's Uvi. You got some mail for us today.
This is the community of Penny. It's the last Royal Mail stop left on Canada's Northern Line. All mail in and out of Penny still goes by rail. A few of Penny's residents stopped by to say hello to the familiar crew of the Skeena. Visitors who arrive by any other means of transportation are few and far between.
You guys make sure you come for a ride.
Basically, there's three ways to get into Penny. You can come in by rail, and you can come in on a really crude road. People that live there use the river to get in and out. But I think most of the people in Penny still consider themselves to be connected to the outside world by the train.
John frequently spends his days off visiting the friends he's made in communities that border the rails. Like the full-time residents of Penny, John paddles across the Fraser, then hikes into town. First on his list of visits is Clarence Boudreau.
Hello, Clarence.
Hi, John. How you doing?
Good.
How was the trip out?
Oh, it was great.
Good, eh?
It's kind of hot. Any chance you can take me up to see the hatchery?
Sure can. Let's go.
All right.
Clarence is an establishment in Penny, and whenever you mention Penny, Clarence's name will come up. He epitomizes the country spirit of hospitality, to my mind.
Put my glove on, we'll go out and talk some of these big babies into coming up to the surface here for us. Well, I was born in 1931, February 23rd. It was a bright star in the sky, and 3 wise men came over to my mom's place. And I think that's pretty well recorded. But anyway, our family wasn't exactly what you'd call rich, and they couldn't afford, there was 8 children, they couldn't afford to send us all to high school. So I went to work when I was 15, pulling a crosscut saw in the bush. Olga came to town, I met her, and we got married, raised a family of 5. Been here ever since. Woodpacking time again, every day.
Olga came to Penny to teach school in 1950. It was a rowdy little lumber town then. She arrived, as everyone did, and most still do, via rail.
It happened to be the passenger train the Saturday night before Labor Day. And the beer was piled higher than your head on the station platform when we got off. And all the men in Penny had come to the train to see the new school teachers. It was pretty scary. We watched the tail end of that train go out, and we almost climbed back on. Everything was dark, and it was raining, and there was all these men and all this beer. Yeah.
Is that all you're packing?
What do you mean, is that all I'm packing?
Oh, I got a sore back.
Oh, pooh.
My mother's house is still standing. It's just about a quarter of a mile over here from us. It was built in 1928, and it's a lot of it's got shingles on it, and they've turned red from the sunshine. It's really pretty.
Our first child was born in that house over there. We just stayed right here and had the babies here because didn't want to have them on the train. Some people did end up having their baby on the train.
As the Skeena nears Prince George, the mountains recede into the distance. The interior opens to lakes and broad plains. The train crosses the Fraser River one more time as it enters Prince George. A city of 66,000, this thriving commercial center is known as the spruce capital of the world. This is the end of the line for the now familiar crew of the Skeena. Tomorrow, John Haworth and Dave Burns will run the eastbound train to Jasper. In the morning, this train will continue its journey west to the sea.
Put some more wood on first.
Part of the mystique and the appeal of railroading is the rituals that have evolved from the handling of railroad equipment. Hot fires and steam under pressure require a certain attention to detail. Beyond that, railway mechanisms have a tactile appeal and elegant simplicity of operation. This little engine is the Prince, the pride of Prince George, and of engineer Ron Walker.
Well, we got a little baby here. Well, this was used on construction of the present-day CN line when it started out as the Grand Trunk Pacific.
All aboard!
The whistle on this thing is our little moneymaker.
There goes that whistle. And the conductor said, all aboard.
They make that loud honk honk.
All we have to do to let anybody know that we're running is just start blowing that whistle and they'll become running.
Over there, wave, go, yay!
A lot of people just don't have any idea at all of how it operates. Or, you know, they see me putting wood in the fire and they say, oh, it runs on wood. Well, it doesn't run on wood. It runs on steam. If I say, you know what steam is? The definition of steam? And they say, no. And I say, well, it's water gone crazy with the heat. Kids of all ages like it.
As the Skeena resumes its westward journey out of Prince George, it moves quickly across the open miles of the Great Northern Plateau. The Carrier Sakani tribe, who first lived in this region, traded with the coastal native people centuries ago. The route of the Skeena retraces some of their ancient paths. The Skeena crosses the Endako River 8 times before reaching the shore of Burns Lake. There are hundreds of lakes between Burns Lake and Prince Rupert, lures to fly fishermen from all over the world. One favorite fishing hole has earned the name Millionaire's Pool because of the internationally known celebrities who have fished its waters. Occasionally, the Skeena must slow to allow a passing BC native to cross the tracks. This ambling black bear moves at his own pace. Photographer Matthew Wheeler has boarded the train at Prince George. On assignment for Beautiful BC magazine, Matthew was able to combine his two greatest loves and get paid in the bargain.
I'm always photographing trains just for the fun of it. They're always amazing to me, and each ride is always different. You look out the scenery here, this lake is just beautiful. Wind picking up the waves a bit. And the next moment you might be going by somebody's farm, some horses or baby calves rollicking around, and the weather can change. You move into different weather and different weather moves over you, and in the dome car like this, it's just, the sky's right above you. There's nothing else like this. Train travel is so much fun because you're not having to worry about driving and be somewhere. They look after you, feed you. You get to meet people. I mean, this dome is like a traveling village. It's just an instantly constructed little place where you meet people from all over the world, and they have fascinating different stories they tell you.
Matthew Wheeler's youthful love of trains and of images has evolved into a rewarding professional life.
Miss Smithers, we got a 10-minute stop here if anyone wants to get some fresh air.
The Skeena makes a regular stop at Smithers, a logging town that marks the end of the interior plateau. As well as giving the passengers a chance to stretch their legs a bit, the stop at Smithers is a crew change point. The new conductor is Anita Marple. Anita has been working on the rails for 17 years and will be taking the train all the way to Prince Rupert. From the moment the Skeena leaves Smithers, it is dwarfed by mountains. None are as dominant as Hudson Bay. Catlin Glacier, an ice cirque more than 100 meters thick, is nestled in the mountain's central valley. Anita knows every point of interest along the route. She's compiled a guidebook that she loves to share with her passengers.
It's written from Jasper to Prince Rupert, and it works along the mileage boards along the track. Just sort of lets you know some of the places you're going through, and you gauge what people want. And sometimes people just like to be left alone, and other times people would like to talk and learn about the area and learn about even yourself. And I like to learn about them and where they're from and where they're going after this trip. And a lot of them are just turning around and coming right back again because they've had such a great time.
The train has followed the Nechako River since leaving Prince George. It now parallels the Bulkley River as it travels deep into the ancestral lands of the Carrier, Tsimshian, and Giksan peoples. This is a land of misty coastal mountains, thunderous rivers, and ancient traditions. Near the village of Morristown, the Bulkley rushes through rocky narrows. Visitors are welcome to stop and watch native fishermen perched precariously on slippery cliffs, catching huge salmon. With spear-like gaffs, they pluck the fish from the churning waters. These people, and their people before them, have been catching salmon here, living here, for over 5,000 years. Only a few miles off the tracks, near the Alaskan Highway, is a small First Nations village of the Gixon tribe. Kitwancool is world-renowned for its totem poles. As poles' functions are as diverse as marking a grave, supporting a roof, or celebrating a house moving. The tallest, brightest, and most elaborately carved totem poles tell of family histories or legends using a complicated series of symbols, often in the form of animals or spirits. One of the most respected of the area's totem pole carvers is High Chief Earl Muldoon.
What I've carved in 26 years is about 50 totem poles in different sizes, anywhere from 6 feet to 76 feet. So basically what I'm doing is putting in the eye, rough out of the eye of this raven. Goes in like that. Okay.
Earl has dedicated his life to reestablishing the pole's importance and presence in the Gixon villages. One way he's doing that is by working with younger carvers, like his nephew Danny Young, and Gerald Good, the nephew of the chief for whom the pole is being carved.
It's an everyday life here. These poles are pretty significant. A lot of the images or figures on the pole is a family crest, and there's some incident in the lifespan of these people of where some event happened, and these images were adopted. When the pole goes up, everybody in the country knows who it belongs to and why.
Unfortunately, totem poles have a fairly short lifespan. The moist air in which they stand so tall rots the wood.
That pole is roughly now, I think it would probably be in 150, 170 years old. As you could see from some of the tops of the head, they're decayed back down. But actually this one's been a survivor, I guess you'd call it. I'm just trying to re-establish the poles here and make sure that the people 100 years from now know that these people had a culture.
This is a region of many stunning bridges. The highest of the entire journey is the Sealy Gulch Bridge. At 195 feet, it towers over the meeting place of the Bulkley and Skeena valleys. Only 12 miles further, the train crosses its namesake, the Skeena River. At 163 feet, the Skeena Crossing Bridge is the second highest on the line. For the rest of the journey, the train follows the bank of the Skeena River all the way to Land's End, at the port town of Prince Rupert. The Skeena River is known as the River of Mists. When the mists lift, they reveal the stunning peaks of the surrounding mountains.
He knows the route. How you doing? I brought you something.
A trip on the Skeena is filled with many pleasant experiences.
A little bit of sockeye smoked salmon.
The warmth of Canadian hospitality is but one of them.
Just out of the river like 3 days ago. Sugar and aniseed.
Oh, thank you.
No, you're already done. You need seconds. A lot of our guests are American and Europeans, and they find that distance just so incredible, the concept of going for hundreds of miles with no communities or no people. So that in itself is quite amazing. And if they come in on a sunny day or a cloudy day, you can come along here and see hundreds of waterfalls on a cloudy day. And then as the valley opens wider and wider and you come to the ocean, they're mostly just thrilled. They're just thrilled. They think they've had a trip of a lifetime, and they have.
Two such travelers are Austrians Hubert Wiedauer and his grandson Florian Rag. They had considered renting a car, but instead chose to see Canada by rail.
But you don't have to drive, you don't have to concentrate on the road. You just lean back and look out of the window and let the country pass you. It's really beautiful.
It's very good zum Fischen, zum Lachsfischen.
Yeah, he said he's always in Austria and he's seen the country, and Canada is a big and beautiful country, and it's very good for fishing, and that's why he comes here, for fishing.
There's a million things to do for the sportsman and the fisherman and the hunter. You got those fishing rods?
Oh yeah, we got our fishing rods.
All the communities along here, they're very tourist oriented, and they want people to come to see some of the most beautiful country in the world.
Thank you.
Okay.
We'll see you again.
Okay, you guys, watch your step. Boat's just down here. It's going to be a good day of fishing.
The Austrian tourists have secured the services of local guide Terry Garon. Terry owns and operates Skeena Valley Wilderness Adventures out of nearby Prince Rupert. He prides himself on taking people to special places.
This is as far as you can go up one of the tributaries on the Skeena Valley. Seems like people are dwarfed when they first come into the valley. You've got sharp, high, 5,000-foot cliffs coming right into the river. It's diverse and it's always changing, and there's lots of wildlife. There's lots of fresh air. There's lots of big trees producing oxygen. It's just a peaceful place to get away from things. I think it brings people into reality. I mean, when you live in a city, you forget about the natural part of our life that we miss out on.
So you want to go for some trout or?
Yeah, we'll
salmon?
go for cutthroat. They follow the pink salmon runs up.
What do they look like, cutthroat?
They got little red marks underneath their gill area. Crocodiles, skinny mini, meps, these will work.
You don't see roads, there are no power lines.
No telephone.
No phone, yeah. No cars. It's just a wilderness.
Ruhe, ne?
Quiet, peaceful.
Unberührte Natur, ne?
He said nature's never been touched. If you go hiking in Austria, you see lots of people, and here you can go hiking and you don't see anybody.
Oh, he caught one. Hey, all right. Woohoo! Oh, that's a beauty. Nice looking fish. I prefer a catch and release emphasis on everything. It's just as much fun picking up a fish and then releasing it. Gently put him in. There he goes. All right. Oh, yeah. No, secluded.
The fishermen speed back downstream to the Skeena River. Terry has arranged transportation for Florian and Hubert's trip to Prince Rupert. Pilot Trevor Pierce runs Inland Air out of Prince Rupert. He charters his fleet of seaplanes to transport people for business or for pleasure to the most isolated spots along the coast.
Okay, guys, see you later. Have a good trip.
Today he's taking Florian and Hubert for a scenic aerial tour of the coastal region and Prince Rupert Harbor. The tour and the journey end in Prince Rupert. The quaint town that once had dreams of being a gateway to the Orient is primarily a fishing town. It's also a picturesque starting point for trips into the nearby Canadian and Alaskan wilderness areas.
When you come into Prince Rupert, the train is the best because you follow the Scenic River right to the Pacific Ocean, right to the Prince Rupert Harbor. And all the years I've been going back and forth, there's something new I've discovered, something I hadn't seen before. Because of a tree was blown down, you couldn't see it before, or where a tree has come up, or the river is widened, or an avalanche has taken out some country. It's always changing. It is one of the most scenic rail tours in probably the world.
Prince Rupert Station, the end of the line. Some passengers will spend a few days in Prince Rupert, some will travel on to Alaska, and some just may head back east on the Skeena.
The bells ring and the people sing. Hey, good morning. We're ready to board.
It's nearly 8 the next morning. Anita and the rest of the Skeena's crew are greeting another group of excited adventurers. The Skeena's journey of discovery never ends. This village on wheels continues its connection with the rest of Canada, present and past. It turns around and heads back into the mountains, rivers, tunnels, and bridges. It traces the paths of the pioneers and the First Nations people before them. It honors and celebrates the lives of the hardy people of northern British Columbia.